Hello and welcome to episode 46 of the HHH Racing Podcast. This is your host, Howard Kravitz. Thank you very much for joining me today. We're going to be recapping what was an unbelievable day of racing in Belmont, New York at the Belmont Stakes yesterday as I'm filming this on Sunday. Before we talk about those races, please make sure you hit that subscribe button there on the right side of the screen. And then after you do that, hit the notification bell so that you're aware when new content comes on the show. If you've been watching this show, you know the drill. You can reach me at hkravitzhorse@gmail.com. Just look at the scroll there below, hkravitzhorse@gmail.com. And you can also follow me on Twitter at hkravitz. Again, you can see the spelling right there on the tag there to the right of my name. Uh, we are going to be live next Thursday night, 8 p.m. I'm working on getting some viewer guests, so we're going to have some handicappers that are viewers of the show, a little roundtable action. Not sure where we're going to be covering the Saturday races yet. Most likely it'll be New York or California, but we'll get back to you on that. But please watch the show this Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern, as we'll have a roundtable discussion with some of our viewers um, who are very loyal and been fantastic. And I cannot thank all of you enough for being big supporters of the show. The viewership has been tremendous. We had Nick Tamero on last week, and he was a great guest. So thanks to all my previous well-known guests. And this Thursday, we're going to have some special guests that'll be viewers of the show. So it'll be great to talk to you guys as well. As you know, if you look there at the bottom, I started a race day blog through Patreon. It's very cheap. It's a great deal. On this blog, ladies and gentlemen, I gave out the pick six, the late pick five on Saturday. Paid $660, but I was alive to Known Agenda and Rock Your World also, and those would have paid in the thousands. Essential Quality, of course, got the job done. But again, if you have not signed up for the race day blog, it's very cheap. It's only about $3 a blog. You'll get it every single weekend, $12.99 a month. I've had many very good opinions on there. Some of my spot plays this past weekend, admittedly, were not very good. Some horses that a lot of people liked just ran very poorly this weekend. But my opinion in the late pick five was excellent, and we hit the late pick five for 660. Hopefully you had it also. Again, you can only get that information on the race day blog. So please make sure you look at the information below. And if you want more detailed information, look at the description below the video player of episode 45, the preview show with Nick Tamero. Again, if you look in the description below the video player, there is a lot more detail about the race day blog you can find out there. Also, I am very active through In the Money media. I'm very honored that Peter Thomas Forenthal and Jonathan Kitchen have brought me on to their family. I cover Canterbury Park on a regular basis. They race Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Sunday. It's an excellent track. You can follow my picks on In the Money podcast.com, and you go to the blog section for Canterbury Park. It's a very good, underrated, mid-level track. My picks are there every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Sunday. Those are free on In the Money podcast.com. Please make sure you check that out. So today we're going to cover the late pick five sequence. I'm going to show a bunch of replays. There's a lot of very interesting things that happened on Saturday, and there's some weather factors, I thought, and some track factors that went into play. Now, it's been pretty bad weather there, really, at Belmont. Last 5 or 6 days, they've had a lot of rain. Saturday was absolutely beautiful. It was hot. It was very windy. And I think that did play a little bit of a factor in some of these races. We're going to talk about that. I've mentioned a little bit how the wind, if it's strong enough, can affect the races. And I think they did affect the races here, in addition to some track buys, at least early in the card. So there are a lot of things that you need to pay attention and watch here, because a lot of these horses, of course, are going to be coming back at Saratoga, at Del Mar, big races throughout the country the rest of the year, and you're going to see these names again and again. So it's really important that you pay attention, watch these replays. I'm going to point out a few things that I think were uh, worthwhile to take a look at. So the first thing that we are going to do is we are going to look at, and I'm going to be going full screen on a lot of this just to help you out, but we're going to first look at the seventh race. This is the first leg, and there were a lot of good races before that, but we're going to focus more on the pick five today. You can go back if you want to look at previous races. Obviously, you can do that, but we're going to focus on the late pick five races. The first one we're going to look at here was race 7. This is the Ogden Phipps. This was for older filly mares. They're going a 1-turn mile and a 16th. And as you look at the chart, that you can see the results. Latruska gets the win at 1.2 to 1. She broke well. We're going to go ahead and watch the race. It was an excellent effort. Again, I'm going to go ahead and go full screen here on the camera with the replay so we can see the video a little bit better as I go ahead and get my screen set up here. Latruska here is the 3, and some people thought She Dares the Devil was going to have the lead. I personally didn't. I thought the 3 Latruska was faster if she broke. You can see she broke really well and great on top. Now, and you see She Dares the Devil with Florent Giroux in second. Now, let me just pause it. Actually, we'll go ahead and watch the replay. We'll just watch the whole replay, and then we'll talk. You see there's a very strong hold. Latruska looked really good the whole way with Jose Ortiz on the mount. And Giroux is very confident here in second, and he wasn't that far off. I did see some people on Twitter criticize Florent Giroux's ride, saying he wasn't close enough, he wasn't pressing Latruska. Look, if you're She Dares the Devil, I mean, isn't this exactly where you want to be? I mean, if you want to argue, they go 23-2. If you want to argue that she should have been right on top of Latruska and battling, okay. But I think that would have just set the race up for Bonnie South. So you see he's actually losing touch a little bit, and you see Giroux is trying to ask, as a Jose Ortiz on Latruska, he just takes a look back there. This was not She Dares the Devil's best race. I don't really have a problem with the ride too much. You can see right here, Giroux is really pumping, trying to get closer to Latruska. As you see Bonnie South, the 7 horse here, ranging up on the outside. And look how wide that you can see they're pretty wide off the inside. It's something I'm going to be talking about here in a minute. But this was not She Dares the Devil's best effort at all. I don't criticize the ride personally. Latruska running well here into a very strong headwind. Bonnie South makes a good run. She runs perfectly fine as she gets second and beats She Dares the Devil out of the try. And you can see the ending right there. Now, we need to go back here to the stretch especially. And let me talk about this. The inside part of the track, especially early in the day, was absolutely awful. These jocks on many of these races, look how wide they are right now. I mean, you can see Latruska is really in like the 3 path. Excuse me, Latruska right here is like the 3 path. So is She Dares the Devil. Bonnie South, is sort of like in the 5-6 path. I'm more maybe like 4 or 5 path right there. You did not want to be on the inside part of this track most of the day. I strongly believe the track did change a little bit towards the end of the day, and we'll talk about that in a minute. As you see, Latruska, we're not going to watch the rest of it, goes on to win the race right there. But really, in my opinion, sorry, I'm going to go to that there. I thought the track was playing very much to closers early in the card. Now, I know Latruska just wired the field there. There was a let me go ahead and put myself on full camera here. There is a very strong headwind down the backstretch. They were against the wind down the backstretch. They were with the wind in the home stretch. That usually favors closers, and I think it absolutely did. The Latruska was the one exception. However, Bonnie South did close very well into a moderate pace, and there were a lot of closers that won early on the card. Speed was not holding up. The inside was absolutely awful. These guys were way off the inside. So when you handicap going forward, especially in the early part of the card, I think you need to upgrade horses that were on the rail, and you also need to upgrade horses that were on the lead because I think this track, especially earlier on, was helping outside horses and closers. That typical sort of Belmont balcony move that they talk about at Belmont, where you're just wide. Wide is not necessarily a bad thing. I think it was very evident early in the card. Latruska is one of the few horses, I think actually was the only horse all day, I'd have to go back and look, that went wire to wire on the dirt. So that is something you need to pay attention for your handicapping. Latruska gets it done as the slight favorite in that race. Let's go ahead and go to race 8. Race 8. And by the way, Latruska was an A for me, as well as She Dares the Devil in the blog pick 5. I moved up Latruska because of the scratch of She Dares the Devil. Race 8, I thought was one of the best races of the day going in. It's the Grade 1 Just a Game. It was 1 mile on the turf for older fillies and mares. And I strongly felt that Chad Brown was going to win this race. He had 4 entries at first. There was a big scratch of Blowout. Blowout looked like she was going to be on the lead. I thought she had a big chance, and she was scratched, which made things a lot more interesting, frankly, in this race. And 2 euros coming for Charles Appleby, both of them about 7-1, finished 1 and 2 as Althika, who I talked about on the preview show as an interesting horse coming in. I liked her more than Summer Romance. I mentioned on the preview show, episode 45, she had a wicked turn of foot. I'll be honest, I thought the Chads would probably win this race, but I thought Althika was interesting. I used her as a B. Actually used her as an A on the blog. Originally I had her as a B, but I moved her up to an A due to the scratch of Blowout. And you got to give a lot of credit to Mike Smith, who I thought rode an excellent race, saving ground. We're going to go ahead and watch the replay of the Just a Game. The 9-horse Summer Romance takes the lead in this race, which should not have been surprising based on the fact that Blowout was scratched. So you see Summer Romance breaking very well, getting a pretty easy lead there. The winner eventually is going to be the gray Althika, the 8. What was very surprising to me here is the Chads didn't run. Now, there's a reason they did not run. Again, it's very important to understand race flow and positioning. So I'm going to go ahead and let this run, but the horses I want you to watch are the 6 Pocket Square and the 10 Tamahir, and also the 4 Regal Glory. Now let me back this up. Regal Glory, the 4, which is one of the Chads, looked like she'd be on the lead or close to the lead of the 9. That looked like the only real pace in the race. But you see they break. The Chad, the Peter Brandt, their Regal Glory, the 4, with Jose Ortiz, did not break very well. And so you see, actually, Jose Ortiz had to take back a little bit. And so the 3 Chads now are, in mid-pack and in last, which should not look like it's going to be that way on paper. And you see the 6 Pocket Square, who's right below the arrow there, and the 10 Tamahir is outside of her. They are both uncovered and wide. Now, turf horses in general like to be covered up, which of course means they're trailing behind. They're in behind. Or see, Tamahir is really pulling. Tamahir absolutely wanted to be covered up, and she is out there by herself. I know it looks like she's comfortable, but she's tugging. I really think Tamahir and to some extent Pocket Square, the 6, both wanted to be in behind horses covered up. That's what Chad Brown teaches, and they are both now 3 wide or even 4 wide on the outside, facing a very heavy headwind into them without being covered. And in turf racing, especially when you have the wind like this, I think it's to your advantage to be covered up just like they do in NASCAR or horse racing when you're drafting. It definitely matters. Horses prefer to be covered up in general, especially the Euros drafting like they do in horse racing, taking cover. Neither one of these were. This is not the ideal spot. And Regal Glory, the 4, is all the way back here. Certainly didn't want to be that far back. Meanwhile, Summer Romance gets the lead there in 46-4, which is an honest pace, but not flying. And you see the winner right here, Athika, the 8. Mike Smith's just waiting, waiting, waiting. Tammy here is 3 wide. You can see right here. Let me freeze it right here. Right here. Here are your 3 Chads right here. This is not where you want to be. Tama here is 3 wide. Pocket Square is now 4 wide, angling out. I thought she got a little better trip than Tama here, but she ran absolutely awful as the favorite. And then Real Glory is 5 wide. So you've got all 3 Chads getting rough trips. And at this point, I was thinking, this is going to be very interesting in the stretch because one of these horses is really going to have to run to win this race. Meanwhile, Mike Smith on the 8 right here. Althika is saving ground. Sure enough, all the Chads don't do a lot of running. Got to give Regal Glory some credit at the 4. And Mike Smith angles to the inside, and just like she did in Dubai, is absolutely rolling in the final quarter here and blows by Summer Romance up the inside. You see Daddy's a legend who got a perfect trip, ran well. And I thought Regal Glory really, all things considered, ran well there for 4th, and Pocket Square finishes 5th, as the Charles Appleby horses finished 1-2 in that race. And when you look at, go ahead and put myself back on camera here just a little bit. When you take a look at the internal splits, which I think are worth looking at. Well, let's take a look at the buyer. First of all, Althika gets a 101. Summer Romance gets a 100. But look at the Chad Brown horses. Real Glory runs a 94, but really, so she ran the race that she's been running, although I think you have to give her some extra credit. She ran better than it looked. Pocket Square regressed, although only slightly, but it sure looked like she was going to take a big step up. So I would consider running the same number pretty disappointing, frankly. And then Tama here was absolutely awful. So really, the 3 Chads did not run their race at all. It looked like Real Glory and Pocket Square especially had a chance to improve their buyer. Tama here also, none of them did. That opened up the race for others. Now, take a look at the final quarter here. Althika, you see where I've got the arrow there under that FIN column. Althika runs the final quarter. Granted, it was wind aided, but the final quarter in 22-4. Absolutely flying. That is very impressive. And that turf course was not firm, by the way, either. And the second final best quarter, by the way, was Regal Glory, who broke a little bit slow, was wide as wide can be, and she ran a 23-2 final quarter, the second fastest quarter of the race. Put Regal Glory in your stable. I'm sure Chad Brown will find the right spot for her. I thought Regal Glory ran a big race, even though she finished 4th. But congratulations to Mike Smith, Charles Appleby, and Althika for winning the Justa game. Let's go on to race 9. This was the Met Mile. The Met Mile was won by Silver State for Asmussen and Santana. It was, of course, a grade $1 million 1 mile dirt race. He went off at 5.7 to 1 and beat the big favorites, K-Nix Go, who was 4 to 5. Let's go ahead and watch this race. And you're going to see, let me just go ahead and freeze it just a second as I go ahead and put this on full screen for everyone so we can see it a little better. There we go. Now, when we watched this race, I thought K-Nixco was going to have a pretty easy lead. You see, he stumbled just a bit. There's a little bit of crowding, and you have to give Ricardo Santana. You see how he's letting Silver State run there, very loose rein. He knew that he had to be somewhat close to K-Nixco. So although K-Nixco did clear off, he did not do it easily, and he was always had company. Now, Lexingtonian, the 4, I thought had a big influence on this race. I thought Mischievous Alex, the 1, had a big shot in this race. And you see, Mischievous Alex right there is up close. But here's the issue. Lexingtonian, who was the 4 horse here, like I said, was up close to the pace, and I think forced the hand of Mischievous Alex. And they had to go a little bit faster than they wanted. When I say they, I'm speaking of Mischievous Alex, and therefore K-Nix Go. Although I really don't have any excuses for K-Nix Go, frankly. But I think Mischievous Alex had to be used earlier than he wanted to because of Lexingtonian. So keep that in mind as we watch the race. As you see, the jockey on Mischievous Alex, who was Jose Ortiz, you see he's asking a little bit with the hands because Lexingtonian was on his flank and he wanted to be closer to K-Nix Go. In the meantime, Silver State, the winner, is on the inside. Now let me pause it right here. In my opinion, the track changed towards the end of the day because these horses did everything they can to stay off the rail until later in the day when it was clear that the rail ended up being a decent place to be. And I think the Belmont Stakes was another example of that. But earlier in the card, it definitely was not. They were trying to stay off the rail as if there was a big monster down there. So you see, they go 46-1 to the half, which is not flying, but is absolutely legitimate. And you see Jose Ortiz really making K-Nix Go the 6 work. And look at how wide. Now, I don't know if this was a conscious effort or not by Joel Rosario. I'm guessing it was because I think he believed that the rail was not good, which in general it was not most of the day. And you see they're out in like the 4 or 5 path here, and you're going to see Silver State come up the inside, getting what ended up being a great trip as they float out there and Ricardo Santana asks, and I don't really have too many excuses for K-Nix Go. He did hang on in there, but really not as well as he should have. So all those concerns, perhaps about coming back, maybe from Saudi or him just not being a one-turn horse, definitely came into play. I don't think it was the trip from Saudi as much as it was this horse is better around 2 turns. You're going to see by my standards, and Gabe Saez very wide in the track, making a run. Mischievous Alex hangs in there, but you can see the celebration by Ricardo Santana as Silver State wins by about a length over by my standards, and third was Mischievous Alex with K-Nix Go finishing fourth. Now I want to mention something about by my standards, who I frankly did not like in this race at all. Gabe Sides, I think, makes a very crucial mistake. And again, I'm not that harsh on jockeys normally, but right here, right about here, I think you can fairly say that by my standards has a pretty big shot. Watch him go left-handed. And when he goes left-handed, right about there, you see he goes left-handed, he starts drifting. By my standards is drifting out here all the way out into like the 6th path, and then he jumped lead, and then he switched lead. So again, I'm not sure going left-handed was the best thing to do right there for Gabe Saez. Perhaps I'm being too harsh because the horse ran a good race. Would that have made up the length difference? I don't know, but I think it definitely would have been a lot closer. Silver State is absolutely on a roll right now. Take a look. He has now won 6 in a row. He's undefeated since October 22nd of last year. He's 4 for 4 this year. All this horse does is win. I underestimated him in this race. He got a 100 buyer. Now, listen, I want to give credit to Silver State. This was not the strongest running of the Met Mile. And so I hate to downgrade a horse because he won a grade 1 because this horse is in very good form. Usually you have to win this race with a bigger buyer than a 100. So again, I think you have to be careful with Silver State going forward, but he is very sharp form. You can see Mischievous Alex ran a good race, ran a 98. By my standards, jumped back up to a 99. K-Nix Go regressed to a 95. I think he'll be better going around 2 turns. And you see Dr. Post and Lexingtonian there also. Congrats to Asperson. Let's go to the Manhattan. The Manhattan was won by an absolute monster. Domestic spending, excuse me, and then put myself back on camera. Domestic spending might have been, along with Essential Quality and Hot Rod Charlie, Domestic Spending, you could argue, was the most impressive horse of the entire day and weekend. I thought he was absolutely awesome. I think this is a Breeders' Cup Turf possibility if you can get the extra quarter mile. Let's take a look at Domestic Spending because this race in the Manhattan was very, very impressive. You can see he did go off as the favorite, and he got a good trip and a good setup, but he came home like an absolute wildebeest and is a serious factor going forward. He is the best turf horse in the country. I don't think there's really much doubt about it right now in terms of 2 turns, for sure. You see they break from the gate, and Tribufon, by the way, let me shut this off just for a second here. I do want to give credit to Nick Tamero, who was on my show, who gave out Silver State in the Met Mile as a price possibility. So, Nick, again, thanks for coming on the show, and congrats to him for snuffing out Silver State in the Met Mile. You see Tribuvon, who won the Fort Marcy with a very good buyer last time for Chad Brown, the 8, and Eric Consell going off to the lone lead. Uh, Colonel Liam, who I thought was possible, but I was against in general in this race, is not in an ideal spot. He's sort of in the 3 path there, now almost in the 4 path. So Colonel Liam was a little bit wide as they go 23 and 4. That's a legitimate first quarter. Not flying, but moderate. The winner you see right here is Domestic Spending, the 4, for Flavian Pratt taking his time on the outside. And I really like this ride by Eric Consell on Tribuvon. I love aggression in general. It's highly unusual that I will question a jockey when he's aggressive. Sometimes you can be aggressive to a fault, but I don't think that was the case here at all. As he goes 46 and 4, that's legitimate. That is legitimate for sure. Colonel Liam here, the gray is in 4th, and you're going to see Domestic Spending starting to make his move, all along with Master of Foxhounds, who definitely ran better, the 3 horse, and you can see Gufo, the 9, coming from like 20 lengths, 15 lengths back, making his run. Right here, they go 111. It looked like Tribufon might be getting away from them, but take a look at Flavian Pratt as he angles him out, gets a perfect inside-outside trip, and now he's in full flight as he's starting to blow by several horses here, and he takes the lead sort of in deep stretch. He did switch leads again. This horse is a little bit goofy with his lead changes, but he's just running so easily and so well. He gets the victory there with Tribuvon in second, Gufo a good 4.5 lengths back in third, and you can see Master Foxhounds getting fourth. Now, there was an inquiry, and I thought this was absolutely ridiculous. I'm not sure if this was a jockey inquiry or steward's inquiry. I'd have to go back and look at the replay or watch the feed. But right here, I guess they were saying Domestic Spending came in on uh, Master Foxhounds right there. I mean, it was the very slightest of studies. It had absolutely no effect on the result of the race whatsoever. It was frankly a ridiculous inquiry if it came from the jockey. If it came from the stewards, I also think it was a little bit silly too. Nonetheless, Domestic Spending is the best domestic 2-turn distance turf horse in the country right now by far. Let's take a look at the buyers there. He gets a career top 106 buyer. I think the sky's the limit. The scary part about Domestic Spending right now is that this horse can still easily be improving. He's only a 4-year-old, so that's scary, and he's a sort of newly turned. I wouldn't say newly turned, but he's really in the middle of his 4-year-old season right now. You see, Gufo ran a 100, Tribuvon ran a 101. I don't think Tribuvon and Gufo class up with Domestic Spending, but they are both very solid turf horses that will win a lot of money this year if spotted correctly. Masterpiece was disappointing, I thought, running a 94. Channel Cat regressed. Colonel Liam was very disappointing, only with an 89 buyer, one of the lowest buyers he's ran in quite a while. I don't think this horse wants to go this far. I think they need to turn Colonel Liam back. I think he's deadly from a mile to a mile and eighth. I don't know. I think in the Breeders' Cup in November, if he's healthy, I think they're going to put him in the mile race if I had to guess right now. But there's really not a Breeders' Cup race that really suits Colonel Liam to the exact distance I think he wants to go, which is like a mile and 16th, mile and eighth. Domestic spending, if he can get the extra quarter mile, is going to be a big factor in the Breeders' Cup. Take a look at the final quarter. Domestic spending, granted, this was wind aided, 22-3. Oh my. That is absolutely flying. And by the way, Gufo Guvo's quarter mile was almost as fast. The problem is this horse is just way too far back, and domestic spending is a lot more tactical speed. Look at the first quarter. Domestic spending 25.02. Gufo almost, you know, 0.76 tenths slower early. So Gufo is just a huge drop back and make one run. That is a tough way to win races. And Tribufon also ran very well. Again, domestic spending with a 106 buyer winning the Grade 1 Manhattan. All right, let's go now to the Belmont Stakes. Now, the Belmont, what a tremendous race this was. Fantastic race. Essential Quality, of course, as we know, is the winner. But I got to say, Hot Rod Charlie, who was my pick in the Derby, ran an absolute blinder, as they like to say overseas. He ran an unbelievable race. I think you can make a strong argument that Hot Rod Charlie actually ran the better race. His buyer is slightly lower, but if you take the pace adjusted figure, I think he's going to end up running faster. He ran the fastest first quarter in the history of the Belmont Stakes. That first quarter we're going to see there was 22.78. Again, the fastest first quarter in the history of the Belmont. It was wind aided. That needs to be mentioned. It was wind aided, but it was fast. Hot Rod Charlie ran fantastic. But Essential Quality, my top choice, many of the people's top choice, at 6-5, you got bet down, is the winner of the Belmont Stakes. Let's go ahead and take a look at the Belmont Stakes because there are a bunch of things that we do need to talk about in this race. As you see, there's the chart. They went a mile and a quarter, of course, for I believe it was 1.25, yeah, 1.5 million. Essential Quality was the favorite. Hot Rod Charlie second, followed by Rombauer. Known Agenda, you can see there. Now, let's go ahead and watch the replay. And what was interesting here is it looked on paper like there wasn't going to be a lot of speed. And of course, when that happens, they end up going the fastest first quarter in the history of the Belmont Stakes. I'm just going to let this whole entire race roll, and then we'll break it down. First of all, you see Essential Quality, Hot Rod Charlie and Pratt absolutely asking, but Rombauer's asking a little. Essential Quality was asking to get in the spot. Francisco de Ina for Santana was asking, and the 7, Rock Your World, was also asking to get in position. So a lot of horses were trying to get position. There it is, fastest quarter history of the Belmont, 22.78. So they were flying, no question about it. And it sure looked like right here, to me, they were setting this up for a closer. And I thought Essential Quality, the 2, was sitting in a great spot. Goes to the outside. He's a good 5 or 6 lengths back here. You see Known Agenda was in the 3 path the entire first turn, which is, I wouldn't say ideal. You want to try to save ground in a race like this to some extent. They go 46. I do want to pause it. That second quarter was 23.71. So they go the second quarter in 23-3, fully against the wind. This is a very, very demanding opening half for Hot Rod Charlie and Rock Your World. This third quarter, they finally slow this third quarter down. As you see, the field starts to bunch up, and that's because they slow this third quarter down to 25 3/5. Again, the third quarter was 25 3/5. Essential Quality is now ranging up along with Francisco de Ina, and you can see Saez is asking Essential Quality to keep up a little bit, and Known Agenda with Jose Ortiz was absolutely also asking. These guys know that you have to be up relatively close to win this Derby. You see, Rombauer was also being asked right there in fifth to stay up close. They hit the mile in 137 and 2, and you see Essential Quality now ranging up with Hot Rod Charlie. And let me freeze it. Actually, let me as they're gonna hit the far turn. Let me freeze it right about here. Hot Rod Charlie's already had to run a very demanding race. Essential Quality, I thought, has gotten a better trip on the outside. And Rombauer and Nona Jenna didn't look like they were completely out of it at this point. Only about 3 lengths back at the top of the stretch. But here's where distance and class and talent shows up. As you see, Rombauer and Nona Jenna just cannot keep up. Hot Rod Charlie, who was pretty much on the rail, and Essential Quality are absolutely throwing it down right here. An incredible race. Essential Quality looked a little bit out to the grandstands, but gets clear of Hot Rod Charlie there, just beyond the 16th pole, I believe, or inside the 16th. Ends up winning the race, and you can see it was a long distance back. Let me just show that again. It was quite a long distance back to third and fourth. It was 11 and a quarter lengths back from Hot Rod Charlie to Rombauer, finished in third. So these two horses ran fantastically in the Belmont. Hats off to Brad Cox, who sort of had a rough day going in here. You can see the margin of error right there. Pretty good distance. You see Rombauer there in the back of the screen and Hot Rod Charlie there. But Essential Quality wins it for Godolphin. What a fantastic ride and effort by Essential Quality, winning the race with a buyer. Let's show the buyers there. A 109 career top by far for Essential Quality, and Hot Rod Charlie also running a great race with a 108. Rombauer regressed a little bit, which figured he would off of a fantastic effort only 3 weeks ago in the Preakness. Still ran incredible with a 95, finishing third. Known Agenda popped up and matched his best by over 94. And then you see the rest of the horses. Rock Your World was disappointing, and you cannot say that it was because Rock Your World was up close, because um, he was up close there with Hot Rod Charlie. So you can't really make excuses for Rock Your World saying he was too up close, because Hot Rod Charlie ran a big race. But Rock Your World regresses to an 84. Now let me talk a little bit about these horses. Let me go ahead and change the camera and make myself a little bit bigger here. So what do you do? I'll go ahead and go full. What do you do with these horses? Let's talk about it. First of all, Brad Cox said Essential Quality came out of the race very well. He's pointing him to Saratoga. It looks like possibly the Jim Dandy, which I believe is July 31st. It's the end of July. It's a prep for the Travers. Hot Rod Charlie, they mentioned possibly the Haskell, which would be an interesting spot for him in New Jersey, which is still 6 weeks out. So they might go to the Haskell with Hot Rod Charlie, who I think right now, to me, is the clear one or second best horse of this division right now, along with Essential Quality. And Rombauer is probably not too far off of them. Those three horses seem to be right now above the rest in the 3-year-old division, as they've all run very well in the Triple Crown races, along with probably Midnight Bourbon, and then you can't forget about Medina Spirit, who, frankly, I still think is a little bit of cut below Essential Quality and Hot Rod Charlie at this point, but he did win the Derby. Although I don't know if it's official yet, but I think he's going to be DQ'd out of the Derby. But he crossed the finish line first and ran okay in the Preakness. Known Agenda. Known Agenda was 3 wide in the first turn. Again, not where you want to be. I thought he ran okay. I hated him in the Derby. I liked him more in the Belmont because I have that much respect for Todd Pletcher. He's still a little bit slow. He's a second tier 3-year-old right now. I don't know what they're going to do with him. I think longer is better. I'm assuming they're going to point to the Jim Dandy and the Travers, but he has to improve. He just doesn't have enough tactical speed right now. That hurts him. And he's really just sort of one pace grinder. I still think he has a chance to be a nice horse, but he has some improving to do for sure. Rock Your World. Rock Your World, I liked in the Derby. I thought he was definitely an interesting horse here in the Belmont. Uh, he's been disappointing. There's no other way to say it. It is starting to look like the San Anita Derby was a little bit of a fluke. I hate to say that for a horse that just blew the doors off them and galloped out well, but he has not run back to that. I'm assuming that they're going to put him on turf. It's going to be interesting to see what they do. I still think he's got a lot of talent. He did not run well in the Belmont. There's no question about it. And again, you cannot say it was because of the fast paced either. We'll see what they do with Rock Your World. I still believe he's talented, though. We'll see if he goes to back to the turf where he started his career for John Sadler. Rombauer ran a very respectable third. There to give him a little bit of a break. Michael McCarthy mentioned there was a possibility they're going to rest him all the way up to the Travers. I'm not sure I necessarily like that idea, but obviously Michael McCarthy knows his horse much better than I do. But Rombauer is a good horse. We're going to see where he goes next. I thought he ran incredible third in this race. No one really else other to mention out of this race. We'll see where some of these top flight horses go. But give a ton of credit to uh, Essential Quality and Hot Rod Charlie. By the way, the final time of the Belmont was 227.11. And to give you some perspective, the final time of the Brooklyn, which was for older horses, granted not the top flight older horses, but decent older horses, earlier in the card, Lone Rock went 228.97. That is almost a 2 second difference. Granted, Lone Rock was a little bit in hand at the end, but if you take just at the final times, just at the raw times, that means Essential Quality basically beat Lone Rock by like, you know, 10, 11 lengths. I mean, so if you take a fifth of a second being somewhere around the length, somewhere around that area. So you can legitimately say that Essential Quality was 10 to 11 lengths better than Lone Rock. So that this Derby, Belmont Stake is coming back very legitimate, very strong. The Hot Rod Charlie's final quarter was 25 and 3/5, and considering how fast he ran, that is a very good final quarter with Essential Quality running a slightly faster final quarter, just above 25, which is still good considering they went a mile and a half. So these two horses absolutely ran very well, especially Hot Rod Charlie. They both threw it down. Fantastic race. Congratulations to Essential Quality, Brad Cox, and Godolphin for winning the last leg of the Triple Crown, the Belmont Stakes. Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to be it for episode 46 of the HHH Racing Podcast. Again, please make sure you see on the bottom there, check out my race day blog, go on to Patreon, and you can find out all about it, or go to episode 45 and look in the below the video player in the description. You can find out more about the race day blog, and then of course find my Canterbury picks on the inthemoneypodcast.com Tuesday, Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays. Next time I'm going to see you is Thursday night, 8 p.m. Eastern. We'll have some viewer guests on to handicap a late pick five, either most likely in New York or California. This has been Howard Kravitz, the host of the HHH Racing Podcast. Thanks a lot for joining. Take care and good night.